Sam Valentino, private tune detective here, and I want to share my findings I made regarding the beloved Canadian animation studio, Nelvana. You may have heard rumors everywhere that they're shutting down, especially with the financial issues their parent company, Corus Entertainment, have been going through. Well, I have just found out from a few sources, including the Globe and Mail, that Nelvana has not completely shut down. They're just going to be dormant from animation production for a while, as they focus on distribution and managing their existing properties. This makes sense, given Nelvana has been around since 1971. One of their very first works in the 70s was the television short series Small Star Cinema, combining live-action animation, but most of that show is lost media. But after that, they began making some television specials, including, of course, the animated sequence for the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special in 1978. And believe it or not, Nelvana was indeed close to shutting down in 1983, after their first animated feature, Rock and Rule, bombed at the box office, grossing around only $30,000 on an $8 million budget. It was a pretty neat film, and it's since gained a cult following, but its flopping nearly killed Nelvana, until another startup studio came to Nelvana with an offer to co-produce their first North American animated series with them. You know the studio I'm talking about. Yep, and as you probably guessed, the show Nelvana worked on with Deke was the first season of Inspector Gadget. It was here where Nelvana got to learn how to produce a full-fledged animated series, one with a 65-episode first season, and one of the first weekday afternoon cartoons like that. Nelvana also learned how to subcontract animation overseas, with Tokyo Movie Shinsha animating much of the series, very lavishly in most cases, with assistance from a few other feeder Japanese studios. And there was also 12 episodes animated by Wang Film Productions at Cuckoo's Nest in Taiwan. They looked way cheaper than the Japanese episodes, especially since this was before the studio improved in the mid-80s. Wang soon became one of Nelvana and Deke's go-to animation subcontractors. Heck, Nelvana also handled pre- and post-production for the first season of Inspector Gadget, including recording many of the voices in Toronto, save Don Adams and Frank Welker recording their lines in L.A. Even a young Cree Summer, and one of her first animation voice roles, was part of the Canadian voice cast as Penny. Also at that time, Nelvana started producing Strawberry Shortcake TV specials for American Greetings, who also partnered with Nelvana in scoring an even bigger hit in 1985 of co-producing the Care Bears movie, generating $34 million at the box office. Then I remember the Korean studio Hanna-Barbera quickly became one of Nelvana's main animation subcontractors, and they even co-animated on the Care Bears movie with Wang Film. After that, Nelvana quickly became a key player in children's entertainment. I remember when Nickelodeon showed a bunch of Nelvana shows in the 90s and 2000s, such as Rupert, The Adventures of Tintin, the Beetlejuice animated series co-produced with Geffen and Warner Brothers, Little Bear, Franklin, Maggie and the Ferocious Beast, Pelswick, Max and Ruby, The Backyardigans, My Dad the Rockstar, and Wayside. The Disney Channel also showed a few Nelvana imports, such as Roly Poly Oly, which was Nelvana's first CGI animated show, and the first 2 seasons of Brace Face, which also aired on ABC Family for a while. Nelvana also produced shows for PBS Kids, not surprisingly, like the Magic School Bus and the Berenstain Bears series from the 2000s. And with that said, after Southern Star folded in 2013, Nelvana got distribution rights to the 1980s Berenstain Bears Saturday morning cartoon for a while. Likely so Nelvana could have the full animated Berenstain Bears library. Soon it got to the point where I could tell right away if a Canadian import show of some kind was produced at Nelvana. Also, it's interesting to note that a young Michael Cera did some voice acting work at Nelvana in the early 2000s, most notably as Josh Spitz in Braceface and Brother Bear in the first season of the Berenstain Bears. Additionally, when it comes to their knack for adapting children's books into animation, Nelvana was also the first to bring Clifford the Big Red Dog to life in an animated cartoon form in 1988, in a series of educational videos co-produced with Scholastic and distributed by Family Home Entertainment, a video firm who distributed numerous Nelvana titles on VHS in the 80s. I'm fairly certain Glenn Kennedy was an animator on the Clifford intro at Wang Film Productions, given how some of it looks. But yeah, 54 years. It's also pretty much the amount of time from when Hanna-Barbera started up as their own studio in 1957 to the official demise in 2001 when Bill Hanna died and the studio was completely folded into Warner Brothers Animation, a move first put into action in 1998 when HB left their longtime studio lot in Hollywood to the Warner Brothers Animation lot at Burbank at that time. As for Nelvana, they were independent until about 25 years ago when Corus Entertainment bought the studio for $540 million. Co-founder Michael Hirsch remained with Nelvana until 2004 when he left for one of Nelvana's main competitors, Cookie Jar Entertainment. Shortly after that legal scandal that led to the studio adopting the Cookie Jar name after originally being called Cinar. And also regarding buyouts and folding, I still remember 2008 when Cookie Jar bought out and folded Deke Entertainment. And then 4 years later, Cookie Jar themselves was then bought out and folded into DHX Media, now known as Wild Brain Canada. And contrary to popular belief, that buyout is not why Arthur switched to 9 Story Entertainment for season 16, but because WGBH and Mark Brown needed to relocate the show for time and budgetary reasons. But it ended up working out because of Cookie Jar going under anyways, even if the Flash animation looked really choppy, even in comparison to when Oasis Animation took over in season 20 and improved the animation quality somewhat. But back to Nelvana. Of course, on this YouTube channel, they are especially known for the 2000s Berenstain Bears series that has been featured in several YouTube poops here, even more so than the 80s series from Southern Star. And how Stan and Jan Berenstain were barely involved with it, despite being credited as executive producers, because of Canadian labor laws Nelvana enforced that require mostly Canadian writers and artists such to work on it. So in many cases, this led to the episodes often ended up being very different from the books they adapted, as Zach Wolf has often discussed for you here. Additionally, as far back as the beginning, Nelvana has also done some live-action productions, including a few children's TV shows in the 80s like the Edison Twins and Mr. Microchip, and even that infamous My Pet Monster live-action direct-to-video movie for 1986 was produced by Nelvana. It likely was a pilot for the animated series they produced the following year, down to featuring some of the same cast members. Like the Care Bears, My Pet Monster is also from American Greetings. This has also led to Nelvana soon acquiring distribution rights to the 1986 Goldbook Video Picturamation titles adapting Care Bears and My Pet Monster books. Nelvana was also involved with producing animation for the Toonstruck PC game from Burst Studios and Virgin Interactive Entertainment. But anyways, in addition to ceasing production at Nelvana Studios for the time being, Corus Entertainment also went and shut down 5 Canadian kids' TV channels early this week, including ones they co-licensed, specifically the Canadian Nickelodeon and Disney Junior and Disney XD, the French language La Chaîne Disney, and ABC Spark. They are still operating YTV and Treehouse and an English language Canadian Disney channel. Well, similarly, Nelvana was also the international distributor for the first 5 seasons of The Fairly Odd Parents. Yes, the long-running Nickelodeon animated series featuring Timmy Turner and his fairy godparents. I wonder if that had something to do with Nickelodeon in the USA showing several Canadian imports made by Nelvana. as I already mentioned before. But anyways, the point is, Nelvana isn't completely dead. They've just shut down production for the time being. But the studio will still be active in a way to focus on management, distributing, and licensing their huge library programming. After this Corus financial blunder, maybe Nelvana will start producing new content again. Or maybe it'll end up being sold off from Corus and going independent again. Who knows? But what I know is, as soon as I get more of this dope on the YouTube things, I will tell you all about it. So keep watching this channel and find out what brilliant deductions I come up with next.